The human had no idea what kind of war he had just stepped into. Eric was a simple cargo pilot making low-risk deliveries across frontier planets. His last mission had been rerouted due to a storm, and his ship crash-landed on a strange world. Far from any known map. The planet was warm, glowing with orange skies and thick golden forests. He thought he had time to repair his ship before anyone noticed he was there. He was wrong. The forest was silent. Too silent. Birds didn't sing. Wind didn't move the leaves. And the air had a strange scent like burning flowers and metal. He followed a trail of crushed leaves and claw marks along the trees. Something had been here. Something large. And bleeding. Eric reached a clearing and froze. There, lying in a nest of broken branches, was a red and white creature. Not just any animal. This beast had bright markings across its fur, gold rings on its ears, and intelligent eyes that blinked slowly. It was gasping for breath, its body shaking, blood soaking into the moss beneath it. Eric stepped forward carefully. The beast flinched. "It's okay," he whispered. "I won't hurt you." As he moved closer, he noticed one of its legs was bent wrong, clearly broken. Its chest was rising too fast. Whatever had attacked it was strong and vicious. The beast looked up at him, not like an animal but like someone trying to speak without words. He had no supplies. No scanner, just an emergency med kit. Still, Eric couldn't leave it there. He tore off part of his jacket, cleaned the wound, and injected the creature with a pain blocker. It let out a soft sound, like a sigh, and leaned into his hands. For a moment, Eric forgot he was in alien territory. All he could feel was the warmth of the creature's fur and its soft breath against his arm. That's when the ground shook. Something heavy was approaching. Eric turned and saw tall figures stepping out from the golden fog. They were humanoid but not human tall, feline-like beings with fur-lined armor, glowing red eyes, and weapons made of crystal and metal. Leading them was a woman unlike any Eric had ever seen. She had long red hair that shimmered like fire, golden jewelry across her forehead and neck, and feline ears that twitched as she stared at him. Her eyes were sharp and royal. She was not just a leader. She was a queen. The guards raised their weapons. Eric raised his hands. "I didn't do anything," he shouted. "I helped it." The queen's gaze locked onto the sacred beast in his arms. Her expression softened. She stepped forward, kneeling beside Eric, and touched the creature's head gently. It blinked at her, then looked back at Eric. The queen stood and spoke in a soft but commanding voice. "You saved the heart of the crown." Eric had no idea what that meant. She turned to her warriors and said something in her own language. They lowered their weapons. "You are now bound to our royal law," she said to Eric. "The one who saves the sacred beast must join with the queen." His heart skipped a beat. "Wait, what?" She did not smile. "The royal bond is not a choice. You have sealed it with your hands and your heart." Eric looked down at the little creature now sleeping against his chest, and the forest, once silent, began to hum with the sound of fate unfolding. Eric walked in silence, surrounded by royal guards with glowing armor and long feline tails swaying behind them. The queen walked just ahead, never looking back. The sacred beast, still weak but alive, was wrapped gently in a soft blanket and cradled in Eric's arms. He didn't understand their world. He didn't know their customs. But something told him he had crossed a line that could not be undone. As they moved deeper into the golden forest, giant trees curved above like ancient cathedrals. Strange lights floated in the air, glowing orbs that pulsed like fireflies. They reached a hidden stone path, leading to a city made of crystal and vine. Towers shimmered under the setting sun. The walls were alive, humming softly like breathing creatures. The people watched from balconies and bridges. Feline citizens with fur-covered skin, noble clothes, and glowing eyes. They didn't cheer, they didn't speak, They stared in silence as Eric passed. Some bowed their heads. Others whispered behind their hands. A few looked at him with deep confusion. Or maybe fear. The Queen finally stopped at a large gate made of gold and ivory. She looked at Eric for the first time since the clearing. You are now within the sacred palace. Your actions have placed you under the law of life debt. Eric frowned. What does that mean? It means, she said calmly, you are no longer a stranger. You are bonded to the royal bloodline. I just helped a creature, Eric replied. I didn't mean to. She raised one hand. Intent is not required. You saved the heart beast. She is part of me. You are now part of us. The guards opened the gates, revealing a grand hall with floating lights, golden fabrics, and soft music in the air. In the center stood a glowing pool of water. Priests and nobles stepped forward, bowing to the Queen. One elder stepped close to Eric, studying his face. He is young, the elder said. But his spirit is strong. The beast chose him. Eric opened his mouth to speak, but the Queen motioned for silence. You will rest now, she said. A chamber has been prepared for you. The beast will be healed beside you. No one may touch you while the bond forms. 2 servants guided him to a high chamber filled with soft cushions, glowing plants, and strange floating stones that changed color when touched. It was peaceful, too peaceful for Eric's mind. He lay down, with the beast curled beside him. Its tiny heart beat against his arm. He stared at the ceiling and whispered to himself, "What have I walked into?" Outside, the Queen stood at her window, watching his chamber. Her face was calm, but her mind was storming. This human had not just saved her beast. He had disrupted the line of fate. She turned to her council. If he is to be consort, she said softly, he must survive the trials. A young priestess stepped forward nervously. He's just a human. He will not survive them. The Queen's eyes narrowed. Then he will die with honor. And far below, Eric slept with no idea of the storm rising around him. Eric woke up with a strange feeling in his chest. For a moment, he forgot where he was. The soft lights above him glowed like stars, and the air smelled of flowers and spice. Then he saw the sacred beast curled beside him, blinking its large eyes. Its breathing was better now. It moved its head and gave a soft, thankful purr. Eric smiled and gently scratched behind its ear. Then the door opened. 2 guards stepped in, followed by a tall woman in long silver robes. Her eyes were cold, and her voice even colder. You are summoned by the Queen. The trials must begin. Eric stood up slowly. Trials? What kind of trials? She gave you 1 night of peace, that is all. Come. He followed them through winding halls and golden bridges until they reached an open arena. The ground was white stone, with runes glowing beneath the surface. At the edge stood the Queen, wearing a silver battle robe and a crown of red crystal. Hundreds of her people had gathered in silence. The Queen stepped forward. Eric of Earth, she said, her voice echoing across the arena. You are now bound by our ancient law. You must face the 3 trials of the royal path. He stared at her. What happens if I fail? You will not die, she answered. But your name will be forgotten. The bond will be broken. The beast will grieve until its final breath. The sacred beast, now wrapped in a golden blanket, was carried to a high platform where it could watch. Eric swallowed hard. He had no weapons, no armor, no training in alien customs. But the way the beast looked at him, like it trusted only him, gave him the strength to nod. I'll do it, he said. The first trial began with the sound of a giant bell. A gate opened across the arena, and out stepped a 4-armed feline warrior, twice Eric's size, covered in black and red armor. He held 2 crystal swords that sparked with lightning. The crowd let out a soft hiss of approval. Eric raised his fists. but the queen motioned for him to wait. A small door opened beside him, and a staff floated into his hand long, made of dark wood with a glowing white orb at the top. It was light, but powerful. The warrior charged. Eric barely blocked the first strike. Sparks flew. The second sword came down, and he rolled to the side. Dust filled the air. The crowd watched without a sound. Eric had never fought like this. But the staff moved with him, as if it knew what to do. He ducked, spun, and struck back. The orb glowed brighter. The ground lit up with ancient patterns, reacting to his moves. His human instincts, fast, unpredictable, confused the warrior. With a sharp move, Eric jabbed the orb into the warrior's chest. Light exploded, and the larger fighter fell back, dazed but alive. The bell rang again. Trial 1 was complete. The queen stared at Eric, her lips tight. She had expected him to fail. But something about the way he moved, the way the beast stared at him with pride, made her heart beat just a little faster. The priest beside her whispered, "This is no normal human." The queen didn't reply. And Eric stood alone in the arena, breathing hard, sweat running down his face, knowing the next trial was only going to be harder. But something inside him had changed. He no longer wanted to escape. He wanted to understand why this strange world was calling him deeper into its heart. Eric sat in silence inside the temple chamber after his first trial. His arms were sore and his legs ached, but something inside him burned brighter than pain. The sacred beast rested beside him again, eyes wide open and calm. It watched him, like it already knew he would not give up. The door opened once more. This time, the queen entered alone. Her armor was gone. She wore soft robes made of flowing red silk. Her long hair shimmered in the soft temple light. For the first time, she looked less like a ruler and more like a woman burdened by duty. "You surprised everyone," she said quietly. Eric gave a tired smile, including myself. She sat beside him, careful not to get too close. Her eyes rested on the sacred beast. "She bonded with you. That has not happened in hundreds of years." Eric looked at her. "What is she really?" "She is more than a beast. She holds part of my soul," the queen said. "She was born when I came of age. Our lives are tied. When she weakens, I weaken." Eric stared at the creature, now understanding why saving her had changed everything. "And if I pass these trials, you will become consort," she said. "A partner to the queen, by law and by bond. But if you fail the last trial, she will die, and so will the link between us. My rule will end." Eric felt the weight of her words settle deep into his chest. This wasn't just about tradition anymore. This was about life itself, for the queen, the beast, and maybe even the people who watched him like a strange savior from another world. The next day, the second trial began. He was brought to the top of a mountain temple where icy winds whipped across the stone. In the center of the platform stood a pillar made of glowing crystal. Around it were 3 ancient priestesses, their eyes covered by golden veils. The eldest spoke. "This is the trial of spirit. You must face yourself, Eric of Earth." He stepped forward, and the crystal lit up. In an instant, the world changed. He was no longer on the mountain. He stood inside his old apartment on Earth. Rain hit the windows. A younger version of himself sat at the table alone, silent, broken. He remembered this moment, the day he gave up on everything. The memory Eric spoke. "You're not a hero. You fix broken ships, not broken worlds. You don't belong there." Eric wanted to look away, but the trial wouldn't let him. Another voice spoke, now one he recognized from the forest. The queen's voice. "You saved her when no one else could. Maybe you were always meant for more." The crystal vision faded. When Eric opened his eyes, he was back on the mountain. The priestesses were gone. The wind had stopped. He had passed. When he returned to the palace, the people bowed deeper than before. Some even smiled. The sacred beast ran to him and leaped into his arms, fully healed. Her eyes sparkled like stars. From the balcony above, the queen watched quietly. She said nothing. But deep in her heart, a feeling she had long buried began to awaken. It wasn't just respect anymore. It was something closer to hope. That the palace felt different now. Eric could feel it in the way the guards looked at him, the way the people in the hall stepped aside with quiet respect. Even the sacred beast walked beside him like a proud companion, her steps light and full of energy. The queen had not spoken to him since the second trial, but he could feel her presence everywhere, watching him, measuring him, waiting. That night, Eric stood alone on the high balcony. The stars above were large and bright, moving in slow patterns across the alien sky. He held a small cup of warm fruit brew in his hand, trying to calm the nerves building inside him. The final trial was coming. He didn't know what it was, but everyone kept saying the same thing. The trial of heart decides everything. He turned as he heard footsteps. The queen stepped onto the balcony. She wore a deep blue robe, embroidered with silver threads that sparkled like the stars. Her hair was loose, flowing behind her like fire in the night wind. "You have come far," she said quietly. "I didn't ask for this," Eric replied. "But I won't run away from it." She looked at him carefully. "You are the first outsider to make it this far. My people were raised to believe only a royal born could complete the trials." "I'm not royal," Eric said, setting down the cup. "But I've learned something. It's not about blood. It's about choice." The queen stepped closer, her golden eyes locked onto his. "And what will you choose if you pass?" He paused. "That depends. Is this about duty or about something real?" For the first time, the queen didn't speak like a ruler. She spoke like a woman torn between law and feeling. "I don't know yet," she said. The next morning, the sky was dark with storm clouds. Trial of Heart began. Eric was led into the sacred garden behind the palace. The trees here were older, taller, their roots glowing faintly. A circle of elders stood around a large pool of water that shimmered with golden light. The queen stood at the edge, dressed in royal red and gold. The sacred beast sat beside her, eyes wide and unblinking. The elder priest spoke. "Final trial, the bond of truth. The human must enter the sacred pool. It will show his heart, his love, his pain. If he lies to himself, he will not return." Eric stepped forward without hesitation. As he sank into the water, the world around him disappeared. He saw Earth again, his lonely childhood, his broken dreams, his failures. He saw all the moments he had buried. He wanted to look away, but the pool forced him to feel. Then the images changed. He saw the beast dying and helpless. He saw the queen strong but lonely. He saw the look in her eyes when she watched him, not as a human, but as someone who gave her hope. He saw himself not lost, not broken, but reborn. The water began to glow brighter. It lifted him up gently. He floated back to the surface, gasping for air. The pool shimmered gold as he stood, alive and changed. The elders bowed. "He has passed." The crowd erupted in soft chants. The sacred beast let out a loud cry, proud and joyful. The queen walked to Eric and placed her hand on his chest. "You did not save just a life," she said. "You changed a fate that was sealed for centuries." Eric looked at her. "Then let me choose freely." She smiled softly. "Then so will I." And for the first time, the crowd saw their queen not just as a ruler, but as a woman willing to follow her heart. The sky above the palace turned golden as the sun began to rise. Bells rang across the royal city. The people gathered in silence, filling the walkways, the rooftops, and the temple steps. It was the day of the bond, when the queen would either accept the human who passed the trials, or reject the law that bound their fate. Inside the palace, Eric stood quietly as the attendants dressed him in ceremonial robes. The fabric was smooth and white with silver lines that shimmered when touched by light, a golden emblem of the sacred. Beast was placed on his chest, its shape matching the glowing mark that had appeared on his skin after the final trial. The beast sat nearby, fully healed and proud. Her golden eyes never left him. A knock at the door. The queen stepped in alone. She wore the crown of the royal bloodline tall, glowing with red crystals, but her face was soft, calm, almost shy. Her dress flowed like moving fire, stitched with the symbols of her people, and her tail moved slowly behind her. "I came to speak to you without the crown," she said. Eric turned. "I thought I'd already passed everything." She stepped closer. "This isn't a trial, it's a truth." She placed her hand on his. "I followed the law because I had to. But I accepted you because I wanted to." Eric held her hand gently. "And I stayed because I wanted to." They said nothing more. Together, they walked into the royal courtyard. The crowd fell silent as the sacred beast walked ahead of them and sat at the base of the throne, her head held high. The queen and Eric stood before the people. The high priest stepped forward, holding a glowing scroll. "By law, the human, who has passed the trials of strength, spirit, and heart, and who carries the mark of the bond, shall become the royal consort, keeper of the sacred beast, and protector of the queen's heart." The queen took the scroll and raised it above her head. A beam of light shot into the sky, followed by a low hum that echoed across the planet. Then she turned to Eric. "Eric of Earth, will you accept this place not as duty, but as your home?" He looked at the people, the beast, the queen's steady eyes. "I already have," he said. She smiled, and for the first time, the queen kissed him. The sacred beast let out a long, joyful cry. The sky shimmered with waves of golden light. The people cheered, not with fear or doubt, but with joy. A new era had begun. The queen had found her equal, not in blood, not in rank, but in heart. And Eric, once just a lost pilot, now stood as part of something greater than he ever imagined. Not because he was strong, not because he was chosen, but because, in the moment that mattered most, he cared. And that was what changed everything.